thank you for joining us today at this truly international gathering of donors, supporters and friends of the University of York. My name is Mary Haworth and I'm Director of Philanthropy here at the University. Today's event is both an opportunity for us to thank you for your incredible support and generosity towards the University over the last year, and to pause and reflect a year on since the launch of our campaign. A year ago, we asked you to be advocates for the values of the campaign and to always be unlimited in your thinking, and an encouragement of others to push at the boundaries of new ideas. Today, we'd like to bring you up to speed on the ways in which we've worked together and how we've worked together over the last few months in particular, as you've helped and stepped in and supported our students, how you've encouraged us to continue to advance research and encourage us to collaborate across the wider community and apply our time, expertise and resources where we can to help those in greatest need. We have some important introductions to make as well this afternoon in the form of the newest members of our leadership team. And we're delighted to be joined today by Pro-Vice-Chancellors Professor Matthias Ruth and Kieran Trahan, and Associate Pro-Vice-Chancellor Tracy Lightfoot. We will hear from each of them a little later when they'll share their reflections on why philanthropy and gifts of time and insight will play a critical role as we move forward. We'll also have time for a question and answer session of about 20 minutes towards the end. So please do feel free to post your questions in the Q&A function of this event. Before then, we'd like to take a moment to reflect on all that has been achieved with your support through the campaign over the last year, which was not quite the year we had planned. For those of you who joined us at our launch event in York last June, you'll remember Anna Pippi. Anna is a holder of a Sharifa Sophia Al-Bukhari Scholarship, and she is a true inspiration. Anna has seized every opportunity that's come her way whilst at the university and given so much back to her community. We'll also receive an update from Professor Dean McMillan on his work on the Student Cohort Wellbeing Study, which was made possible through the Mentally Fit York Fund, which was supported in October last year by money raised through the Great York Walk, as well as by private donors. So please do post your questions and questions to Dean whilst he's presenting the findings of his research. But first, and before we get into today's proceedings, and I hand over to our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Charlie Jeffery, here are a few words of thanks from across our staff and student community.
What does York Unlimited look like so far?
The philanthropic campaign for the University of York has changed so many lives in so many ways.
We've had an overwhelming amount of support from across our York community.
In the UK and all over the world.
We are so very grateful to you for being at our side, whatever our request.
From taking part in the Great York Walk for mental health initiatives to showing unwavering support throughout our first ever Giving Day.
Over the last 12 months, 2,000 scholarships have been provided.
And 80 human rights defenders and 100 student projects have been funded.
And we've broken ground on 2 new research facilities.
And this is all thanks to 9,531 generous donors.
We've also had 1,867 volunteers.
Clocking up 77,555 volunteer hours.
We recently called upon you again.
And yet again you were there.
Helping 600 students to receive grants from our Emergency Student Support Fund.
And there's still more to come.
We are living through uncertain times.
But your support has not stopped.
We are confident that together our York global community can achieve anything.
Thank you for your continued strength and generosity.
Together, we are York Unlimited.
Together, we are York Unlimited.
Good afternoon, everybody. What a great video that was. My name's Charlie Jeffery. I'm absolutely delighted that you can join this York Unlimited supporter briefing. Really pleased that we have participants not just from around the UK, but also from Switzerland, from Malaysia, from the USA. You're very welcome. As you know, York Unlimited is the first institutional fundraising campaign for the University of York. And it's called York Unlimited because we don't feel we should be limited. Limited by precedent, limited by the current boundaries of knowledge, limited in our ambitions for what we can do with that knowledge, especially when we work together with purpose and ambition with our partners and supporters. We really don't see limits to what we can achieve when we work together. York has always been a university that's been driven by its values. These include extending the opportunity to access higher education to all, pioneering research with a social benefit to bring public good, and working collaboratively with the community to help improve lives. We've achieved a great deal in our short history, but we know there's much more we can do. And by bringing together our global community of staff, students, alumni, and the people and businesses of our city, we know that the university can help to make an even bigger difference. Through your support, we will find new ways to tackle inequalities, new ways for science and technology to bring public good, and new ways to help every student succeed. When we launched the campaign a little over a year ago, we knew that achieving these aims was important. They have become all the more so in the interim. The COVID-19 pandemic brings immense challenges. I'm sure that for most of us, it's the biggest general crisis we will see in our lifetimes. The human toll has been terrible. It's brought the biggest economic downturn for centuries. It's disrupted education systems worldwide with damaging consequences for our next generation. These effects, health, economic, social, have tended also to reinforce existing inequalities. And we shouldn't forget that pushed into the background for now, there are other deep-seated challenges that face our societies, not least those around climate change and environmental sustainability. Over the last few months, we've responded to many immediate needs across our community and for our students. That's why our laboratories have first donated, then manufactured PPE, personal protective equipment, to our local hospitals. I had a wonderful visit to one of our biology workshops last week where I found that they had collected all the old overhead projector transparencies from around the university and were turning them into face visors. What a wonderful use for a redundant product. A good 200 or more of our researchers have worked hard in different ways on various aspects of the COVID crisis. Staff and students have volunteered to support the vulnerable in our local communities. And we've been providing extra support for businesses in our city and across the region as they weather the challenge of lockdown and now begin to emerge from it. We were one of the first UK universities to set up an emergency student support fund to help students in greatest financial need as a consequence of COVID-19. And through this fund, we've provided more than 600 emergency awards to a value of over £350,000. Whilst responding to the immediate issues across our community, we've also continued research that has the potential to make a difference to the big challenges faced by the world. The crisis we face now has not led to a change of course, but it is redoubling our efforts and sharpening our focus. We are committed through York Unlimited before and now reinforced by the COVID crisis to seeking answers to a number of key questions, now with new facets in the light of COVID. For example, how can we best support enterprise and innovation to boost economic recovery? How do we redress the issues of inequality exacerbated by COVID, both here on our doorstep and further afield? How will we enable our creative and arts industries to rebuild and to thrive in an uncertain landscape? What will the mental health impact of the pandemic be in the longer term? What does the experience of the last months tell us about the kind of campus we will need in the future? And how can we ensure at a time of global economic crisis that those from less advantaged backgrounds can continue to access the university education their talents deserve. Our role, and indeed the role for this campaign, will be more important than ever. We will seek your support in helping to extend access to those who want to study at the university but face barriers to accessing higher education. And that will now include those whose occupations have been disrupted by the crisis and need to reskill. We will seek your support in helping current students who require financial and pastoral support as a consequence of the academic. And we'll ask you to help those leaving us this July and who are trying to find a path in a more difficult jobs market. And we'll seek your support in helping us apply our research innovations and the talents of our graduates in driving economic recovery in and around York. 1 year on into the public phase of the campaign, a great deal has been achieved, and we can be very proud of this. In the last year alone, more than 4,800 donors have given to projects that they care about. And across the life of the campaign, more than 9,500 donors have given so far. Since we began work on the campaign, 77,000 volunteer hours have been donated to opportunities such as the York Profiles and Mentors programme, which at this time is providing a lifeline to many of our graduating students, for many of whom the options available upon graduation have become more limited. And in the last year alone, more than 1,000 financial awards and scholarships have been made to our students. Scholars such as Bachilo and Leah from Zimbabwe, Ruhi Dawood from Kenya, and Anna Pipi from Ghana, all of whom were featured in our short thank you message. And Anna, you'll hear from directly shortly. They are just a few of these students who will be able to graduate from the University of York and graduate with good prospects because of the donors like you who've supported them. With your support, we've also broken ground on 2 new research facilities. One, a new cryo-electron microscopy facility, which will help advance our understanding of how we treat diabetes. And the other, the future home of the Assuring Autonomy Research Facility. This will help advance our understanding of how we make sure that the robotics and other systems powered by artificial intelligence do so safely, and they'll also help anchor new high-tech businesses in our city. Even with all this success, I'm keen that we think together about what else this campaign can achieve. Keep the sights set high, and indeed higher still. We've only just begun to scratch the surface. There are many more people we can reach. There's more support that we can gain and more expertise that we can learn from. The next phase is both challenging and exciting. We need to build on what's been done in the first year. Our ambition will be bold. We'll continue to break boundaries, break limits, but we must make sure that the difference we make is felt now and in the immediate future. That's why we will expand our commitment to widening access to a York education, amongst other things, designating further funding for students from Black, Asian and minority ethnic and disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. We will direct our energies towards delivering new research into sustainability with the potential of real-world impact on the climate crisis. We'll continue to invest in research into new preventative techniques to reduce the cases of mental ill health and its impact. We'll create a new Institute of Enterprise that will facilitate and support diversity in enterprise, women in enterprise, and social entrepreneurialism. We'll continue to enhance diversity in the creative industries. This is one of the UK's fastest growing sectors, but one in which students from ethnic minority backgrounds and economically disadvantaged backgrounds are clearly underrepresented. Today is about pausing and reflecting on our shared success. It's our opportunity to thank you for all that you've done to support York Unlimited. We'd also like to ask you for your continued help and support. We will achieve our goals if we work together, to collaborate, to benefit everyone. As I'm sure you're aware, there are 3 ways in which you can help. We want to find ways that work for everyone to be involved. Firstly, this campaign is, of course, about money. But secondly, it's also about the time that you can give us to help break limits. And thirdly, it's about the insights you can give us from your own experiences and backgrounds. This is now all the more urgent, and we need to push on. There has never been a more important time for the University of York to make a difference. As a university and as a university community, we're proud of our past, and we're even more ambitious for our future. Together, there are no limits to what we can achieve. Please join us and help us make an even bigger difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. And as promised, I'd like to hand over now to Anna Pepe, who would like to add her thanks to those of the Vice-Chancellors on behalf of the student community. Anna will be joining us a little later for the question and answer session live from Ghana. We weren't quite sure how Anna's internet connection was going to be, so she has pre-recorded this thank you message.
Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm a third-year student studying economics here at the University of York. I am a recipient of the Sharifa Sophia Al-Bukhari Scholarship, and I'm so glad to be here today. It's been a fantastic year since York Unlimited launched, and for me as well, it's been a brilliant year because I have researched, written, and handed in my dissertation, and I have written my final year exams online. Studying economics at York has been everything and more than I thought it would be. I was initially attracted to York because of the course they offer, but also because of the city. Everything is about 15 minutes away, which is really helpful when I'm running from one thing to another. The Sharifa Sophia Al-Bukhari Scholarship has helped me be able to come to the University of York. I'm classified as an international student, and my parents have funded my entire education, but not only mine, my siblings as well. The scholarship has helped to take some of the pressure off them and helped me be able to come to university here. It has also given me all the opportunities I've had since I've been here at the University of York. Both academics, since I've learned from some of the best minds in economics, but also extracurricular. For example, in first year, I was an events officer where I put on events almost every week for my college. And in second year, I was a treasurer for the Tea and Coffee Club, where we brought together students and the elderly to have discussions over tea and coffee every week. I was the department rep for economics, where I managed all the student reps in the economics department and made sure that our voices were heard in the department, but also made sure that the department was heard by students. It's been a fantastic 3 years, and I know I'm gonna miss it. But the end has been challenging, with us having to be in lockdown while we go into our final exams. It's meant I haven't been able to have my friends around me who usually motivate me or help me when it comes to studying. But even at the times when I was at my most demotivated, knowing that I had gained the scholarship kept me thinking about the bigger picture and kept me moving forward. In terms of moving forward, I'm thinking now to apply to jobs where I'm going to be able to use the education I've gained to make the biggest and best impact possible. And that's down to you. You've inspired me to give back to students myself because I've witnessed firsthand just how beneficial it is to have a scholarship and what a great start it can set you off to. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. As you'll remember, transforming mental health research is one of the key goals of the campaign, and we're delighted that Professor Dean McMillan can now join us to give us a brief update on the cohort study. Dean will be joining us for the question and answer session at the end, so please do post your questions in the question function.
Hello everyone. So as Mary said, I'm here to tell you a little bit about the University of York Student Psychological Wellbeing Cohort, which we think is a really interesting and really valuable resource. And as Mary also said, it was made possible entirely by funding from the Mentally Fit for York Fund and the alum donors. So thank you very much for your contributions. This wouldn't have happened without you. So what I'll do is I'll give you a brief background. I'll talk about the cohort a bit, and then we'll move on to look at some findings and future plans for the cohort. So in terms of background, many of you will be aware that over the last decade or so, there have been substantial concerns about student mental health across the UK. And it really struck us as a mental health research team at the university that despite those concerns, there was very little strong evidence to help us inform what we should be doing in response. And there's a real danger there, because if you don't understand what the problem is, you're not in a strong position to sort the problem out. And the University of York has took, in my view, a really informed and thoughtful approach to this. There's been an immediate response over the last few years with increased investment for, let's say, the counselling service, increased investment in making the link between primary care in York and the university. But the university has also taken a long view of this as well. It's committed to building up evidence and building the evidence base that we need to better inform what we should be doing to help student mental health. And the cohort is a crucial part of that longer term strategy. So a cohort, it's a simple idea. What you do is you follow people across time to see how they fare. If we apply that to our cohort, what we're doing in the university cohort is we're following students across their time at York and seeing how they fare in terms of mental health and psychological well-being. So every 6 months, we're measuring mental health and well-being. And we're also looking at the risk and protective factors that might predict how people do fare across their time at the university. And I'll give you some indications of what we've started to find, and we can place some of those in the context of the COVID pandemic, because we had our first data collection back in September 2019, so before COVID had emerged, and we had another measure taken in April 2020, which for the UK was right in the middle of some of the worst times of the pandemic. And obviously, there's a big concern about the impact on student mental health of COVID. And we've got some really interesting findings out of that. They're perhaps not what you'd guess as well, which I think really emphasises the importance of having solid data to inform what you do rather than anecdotal evidence. So what we found was this, that at the group level, there didn't seem to be a difference between psychological well-being back in September and psychological well-being now, which is really interesting. But it gets even more interesting if you dig a little deeper. When we dug a little deeper, we found that about a third of the students weren't showing any change in their psychological well-being across time. But about a third of the students were showing a worsening of psychological well-being. And what was also really interesting is a third of the students were showing a reliable improvement in their psychological symptoms and their well-being. And I think that's a really interesting finding. And we're doing a bit more digging to try to understand that. And we would not know that were it not for the cohort that you've helped to fund. There's a few other things I can tell you about in terms of the extent to which deprivation or ethnicity predicts how people are faring, but I can perhaps return to that in the questions if there's time. And I'll maybe just finish off by saying what our plans are and what the cohort's already led on to. So there's a few things to mention. Our next step is to move from just observing to intervening. So our plans are now that to use this fantastic data infrastructure we've got to rapidly embed randomized controlled trials into the cohort, so we can start to intervene with psychological interventions to see what does work for students, and then we can roll that out across the university. But we're rolling it out when we know it works rather than just guessing. A few other things it's led on to is through the cohort, we've been approached by the Smarter Network, which is a research network working with universities, and they've asked us to take the lead in helping other universities set up their own cohorts. So that really helps put York on the map nationally as demonstrating an evidence-based response to student mental health. Through the cohort as well, we've also been approached by academics who are working with the World Health Organization College Survey, so a big international effort to understand student mental health, and they've invited us to take part in that big survey. So again, that helps put York on the map internationally in terms of student mental health. So that's my 5 minutes. I hope that gives you some sense of how the funding has led to the cohort, which is already producing really interesting findings. But on top of that, it's opened up other doors to us, which helps put York on the map nationally and internationally in terms of student mental health and an evidence-based response to student mental health. So thank you very much.
Many thanks indeed, Dean. I'm absolutely delighted this project is going ahead. I think it's a great example of the university turning its own expertise on itself to make itself a better place to be, a better place to work, and in this case, to study. My task now is to introduce 3 new members of the university's senior leadership team. I'm absolutely delighted to do so because, as you will see, they are brilliant. They're going to appear one by one in the next few minutes. I'll introduce them all as a group now. First to speak will be Professor Tracy Lightfoot, who has been our Associate Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Learning, Teaching and Students, and will take over the Pro-Vice-Chancellor role in that area later this summer. She is a brilliant and passionate educator, full of innovative ideas, and I'm sure you're looking forward to hearing from her. She'll be followed by Professor Matthias Ruth, who's joined us as Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Research from the University of Alberta. Again, brilliant to see an international recruitment to the University of York. And finally, Professor Kieran Trehan, who's our new Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Partnerships and Engagement, who joined us a couple of months ago from the University of Birmingham, and who is really spearheading our engagement with the city and communities around us. You'll hear a little bit about how each of those is developing their programme of work and how it connects to the themes of the York Unlimited campaign. Tracy, to you.
Thank you, Charlie, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Having been at the university since 2004, I'm delighted to be leading on shaping our future vision for teaching, learning and the student experience in partnerships with my colleagues and student populations. There's 2 messages I'd like to share. We are a university for all. Accessibility to our education is uppermost for our future. We want to open up opportunities for everyone, irrespective of background and location, and provide inspiration that York is a place where ambitions, education and careers are nurtured, realised and fulfilled. And this isn't just about our students coming to campus. We want to reach as much of the world as we can. We've already started to do this through online and distance learning, and we seek to do more in this area. My second message is we need to continue to promote and enhance lifelong affiliations with the university. We've already heard from Charlie about the amazing support we've seen during these challenging times, and we have so much to learn from those that have passed through York and the rich experiences they can share, the insight they have about the world of work, and we want our alumni to contribute to shaping the lived experiences of future cohorts and inspiring the next generation of our inquisitive learners. So linking through to York Unlimited, it's perhaps no surprise that enabling every student to shine is closest to my heart. And it's about creating the opportunities, as I highlighted at the outset, and our approach to inclusion. We want our students to be inspired by our pioneering research and learn and draw on the experiences both in and outside of the classroom, with our curricula aligned to our core values of serving the public good, championing equality, diversity, inclusion, and leading the way on environmental sustainability, with interdisciplinarity very much key to this. It's amazing to see within this first year the differences that York Unlimited is making to our students, and in my new role I'm looking forward to actively engaging further and championing the work that's gone before, as well as driving forward new initiatives that ensure students can access our study, thrive and flourish not only during their time with us, but as they embark on their future careers, serve their local communities, as well as the wider world in tackling global and societal challenges. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and let me take over right here with some of the themes that Tracy mentioned and speak specifically about some of the ambitions that I see for the University of York, and some of the reasons actually why I joined the university after 30 years in North America at various universities there. The various points that I make all sort of conveniently fall into 6 categories with words that all start with I. The first one is integration of research, education, and engagement. You've just heard about the education piece, but clearly, if our research is closely related to the way in which we educate the next generation of students, they themselves will find a new trajectory for their careers. And if we do so in conjunction with the work that soon you will hear from Kieran talk about, our engagement with the communities around us, you'll recognize that there's obviously also a close connection between research and education on the one hand and the engagement piece on the other. So this integration of all 3 of those is really dear to my heart. The second I word is interdisciplinarity. If we look at some of the pressing, emerging challenges that society faces in the environmental, in the economic, in the health arena, for example, none of these challenges can be solved from the perspective of an individual discipline. It's really interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity that is key to providing some of the solutions. And York is uniquely set up to deliver on that front. And because many of these challenges are really challenges of a global nature, the university is and must be a global player. And this internationalism is really something that's also very close to the fabric of the way in which the university thinks and operates. It's a value-driven engagement with the rest of the world. The next I word is inclusivity. Again, many of these challenges that we face, we cannot address from the perspective of individual disciplines or from the perspectives of individual groups within society. We need to bring diverse voices to the table, ask the right questions, and then collectively find the answers to those questions. So inclusivity and diversity are going to be key to the research enterprise itself. And then innovation. And it's not just the development of new tools or techniques or new processes for markets, but it's also social innovation, the marketplace of ideas, how we change as a society and how we change ourselves as a university and deliver on that. And then my last I word is implementation. It's one thing to talk about this, it's one thing to study it, it's one thing to leave it within the academic confines, but it's a totally different thing to go out there and implement what we learn, and then through that implementation actually drive the learning enterprise itself. So solving pressing, emerging social, health, economic, and environmental challenges requires really a consolidated approach across all these different categories. It provides us also with a challenge that is somewhat unique to universities, not just to prepare ourselves for what we already know will happen, but to lay the foundation through fundamental research for some of the challenges that we can't even imagine today. And that requires, sometimes years, if not decades, of investment in the infrastructure, in the people that ask the smart questions, that come together and share their knowledge, and then build on this successively. So when challenges like the one we currently experience in COVID emerge, that we have the biochemistry, that we have the biological sciences, that we have the behavioral sciences, that we have all of those around the table to help address some of these challenges. So it really it requires from us that we build on our history, that we build on what we know, but that we also sustain what we do and take the long view. And with that, I want to turn it over to Kieran, who will talk a little bit more about the engagement piece specifically. Many thanks.
Thank you. Firstly, a warm welcome, everybody. I feel a real delight and privilege to have this opportunity to share with you over the next 5 minutes our exciting plans for partnerships and engagement. So I'm Kieran Trahan, I'm the new Pro Vice-Chancellor for Partnerships and Engagement and Professor of Entrepreneurship. But before I start, let me say something about me, because we've talked so eloquently over the last 30 minutes about York and York's mission for social purpose, our values, a university that is value-driven, and that's what brought me to York. And so I want to do 2 things. I want to share with you our new innovative strategy for partnerships and engagement. And then I want to talk to you about the launch of the new Institute for Enterprise. And I'm going to finish on by saying why those things are so critical as we move forward in the future. So at York, we have a moment in time opportunity, not simply to reaffirm our commitment to social purpose, but also to reimagine and rejuvenate our social purpose, because it's absolutely vital that we build on the foundations of where the university was founded. But we've also got to grasp the opportunity to develop and innovate. We've got to make sure that our strategies are progressive, and civic in terms of our values is contemporary and relevant, not only to the communities that we serve, but also to our students who are coming to a modern Russell Group university. So what does that mean for us then? A commitment to public good. A commitment to public good for us means, as we move forward, that we continue to build and remain an anchor institution, that we play a critical role and a prominent role in terms of our civic agenda, so that we place our region nationally and globally. We put place and at heart of the activities that we do. That includes teaching and learning and our research. We have a social responsibility with our students to address the most pressing issues, not just locally, not just nationally, but globally. And we're going to do that through this idea of a city as a living lab, that we use our research expertise, but we work together to improve the lives of our communities, and we contribute to equity and sustainability of communities and cities. But we can't do that if we don't take seriously this notion of how we develop a new generation of diverse civic leaders. We've talked about equality of opportunity. We talked about diversity and how that lies and underpins the DNA of our work. So it's cumbersome on us to ensure that we are developing leaders of the future who understand and work with some of those really complex issues of working in uncertain times. How do we connect their social purpose so that we're creating responsible leaders of the future who are both able to lead in thoughtful, reflective and social ways? We want to make sure that we impact decisively on civil society and policy learning so that we're advancing both social and economic values from our research and innovation to inform national and international policy. And by engaging collectively, then we will work together to make that difference. And the second thing, which is so very close to my heart, is we're going to be launching the new Institute for Enterprise. Why is that so important? Because small and medium-sized businesses contribute a huge amount to regional, to national and global economies. And the skill sets for the next generation has to be how we grow and develop entrepreneurial mindsets. And so the Institute will have a number of roles. Its first role is to provide an opportunity to develop the next generation of young entrepreneurial leaders. And that includes women's enterprise, because women play a critical role in economic, social and cultural recovery. The Institute will also help develop entrepreneurial mindsets and creating a culture at the university that opens up the possibility for enterprise for all, empowering our students to think about what it means to work in small, large and public services, but within an enterprising culture. The Institute also has a role to play in evidence-led policy. So we will engage, and we will do that, ensure that we are developing and enabling new evidence bases that both support and transform entrepreneurial agendas across business community and the policy sector. We'll continue to use our influence through our extensive networks so that we're able to influence diversity and enterprise policy. and the practices, because policy and research is only as good as what we do with it. How do we put that to work to ensure that we're creating sustainable impact? So let me say something about impact. Impact will be used by the Institute and as a way of both evaluating and generating changes, both in terms of practice, but also in terms of formulating new research agendas. And we'll do that through stories and narratives and unfiltered lives, because the compelling stories of what works and what doesn't lie at the heart of what it means to work together to make a difference. And then I want to finish on, York Unlimited has been so highly influential for a whole host of reasons that you've heard. And I want to finish on a quote that says, by Maya Angelou. She says, people will forget what you did. People will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So in a couple of hours, when you forgot everything that we have said and you've forgotten everything we have done, I hope you won't forget how York Unlimited has both inspired, it's created opportunities, it's allowed us to dream with our students just that little bit more and just that little bit bigger. And so together, we will go on and continue to be York Unlimited, because by working together, we will make a difference that counts. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Thanks, Matthias. Thanks, Tracy. If all of our panelists could now reappear as if by magic and join this part of the event, which is the Q&A. We have already received a number of questions from our audience, and I'll try and get through as many as we can and ask various of our panelists to respond. Now, we heard from Anna on video, and one of the questions is specifically at her, and I'd like her to kick off. And the question for you, Anna, is, can you share a little bit about how your family responded when you first got your scholarship offer?
Right. Well, so I was thinking about this, and so my parents have always been very supportive of sort of anything I've said I wanted to do. So when I said I wanted to study in the UK, they were very supportive and sort of helped me. And my mum was ringing me every day to make sure I was putting my UCAS application in. And so that was a whole process. But the whole time there was the sort of condition that I had to get a scholarship to make it feasible and to make it possible for them to support me through university. So when I did receive the go-ahead and the green light, it was brilliant. It was a great moment. I called home and they were ecstatic. They were really, really happy. And I was really, really happy. And so, yeah, I'd say that was really the response from home. It was just one of celebration and happiness that I could go ahead with what I wanted to do with my life. So, yeah.
Fantastic, Anna. Great to hear you, and I'm sure we'll hear from you again before the time we finish. Let me go to another question, which was submitted in advance, and this is one I think Tracy is best placed to respond to, and it's about the practical steps the university is taking to widen access for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Tracy.
So I think we're doing lots in this space across a number of areas. We've got a fantastic outreach programme in schools, not just in the local area, but across the UK as a whole. And we've got a real targeted approach to this. And I think this is something that with Kieran and Matthias will be taking forward in the future as well, to see how we can enhance that offer. We also have bursary schemes for our applicants. We do contextual offers and admissions, and we've already seen we've superseded our targets that we set ourselves last year in that, and are already looking forward to this year. I think importantly as well, we've got a student expert panel, and this panel is really key in shaping our vision. They're our critical friend. They keep us real, and they help us with our co-design and analysing things that we do. But I think for me, it's not, the important part is it's not just about recruiting students, it's about supporting them when they're here. And I think we've got a fantastic package of opportunities that we offer our students. We have an excellent academic skills framework to support students from all backgrounds, irrespective of where they come from. And also that financial support, and it's about the next steps in their career as well. So I think we're doing an awful lot already in this space, but I think there's so much more we can do, and I look forward to working together through York Unlimited to explore this further.
Terrific, Tracy, thank you very much. I'm going to move on to another question, and I'm going to start to answer it, but I'm also going to tee up both Mary and Dean to say something. Question is, can York offer solutions to overseas students to help overcome disparities both financially and in technology, perhaps with donor support, especially if content may de facto become partly or fully online? Now, as you'll know, the university has become for a little while a fully online university, and I think that's probably given us a bit of a push to think more about online capabilities more generally. One thing I would really like us to be able to do more of in future is offer online programs suitable for students from parts of the world, students with talent from parts of the world who may not be able to afford physically to come to York. I think online technologies really give us that capability, and if we really care about opening up access to education, then we should be thinking hard in that direction. And I'm certainly asking Tracy and others to think in that way. Francis McCormick, who asked that question, had a rider on it, which is, what about students unable to afford the technology or unable to have the connectivity with which to partake of that education? And I wanted to ask Mary to say a little bit about how the Emergency Student Support Fund in the last weeks has helped people with that capability to engage with the university remotely, because that could become a bigger part of our future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlie. Yes, and it's really down to the tremendous foresight and generosity of our donors that we were able to set up the Emergency Student Support Fund within weeks of the lockdown situation beginning. And we have, over the course of about 4 rounds of funding now, awarded 600 students with up to £500 of financial aid. Now that support can be used and has been used to update equipment, to establish better Wi-Fi links, and to sort of set a more suitable home working environment for some of those students. We're aware that we don't really understand the scale of the problem going forward, and so we do have money still ring-fenced so that we can go ahead with further rounds of funding as students are arriving, and we're making prospective students aware of the availability of funding. There's obviously more that we will need in this space, so if people are inclined, then supporting the Emergency Student Support Fund right now would be invaluable. As Tracy hinted, we've long thought about how do we ensure that we level the playing field for students are here. And that's where the York Futures scholarships have really benefited our students. And those are awarded in tranches of £250 all the way through to £6,000. And the idea there is that we can react and support the needs of our students, whatever they are. So it could be buying a new laptop, it could be buying a suit for that interview, it could be buying a train fare. And so, yeah, there's more to be done in this space. And I'd be very happy to share with people on today's event about how they can support the Emergency Student Support Fund if they wish.
Thanks very much. And while nobody has asked this question specifically, I did want to connect to the importance of donor contributions in supporting students around mental health issues. And I know, Dean, you are a fan of the Big White Wall, which is one of the facilities for students we have been able to introduce to support those with mental health concerns because of donor support.
Yes, so we've recently funded access to the Big White Wall, which is an online resource that helps with psychological well-being and also provides opportunities for one-to-one treatment virtually for people who need that. And again, the funding for that was through the Mentally Fit York Fund. So that, again, that wouldn't have happened. And it's a great resource. It's an evidence-based resource. I'm a great fan of it, and it will do a lot of good.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I am going to go to Kieran next, and then to Matthias, for whom a cluster of questions has emerged. But for Kieran, there's a great question here about modern leadership competencies and how they might have changed or be changing in the IT and AI world.
Great, thanks, Charlie. It's a superb question, because leadership lies at the heart of everything that we have been talking about, and leadership competencies, leadership skills, leadership processes are changing, you know, not just because of COVID-19, but also because of the kind of challenges that we have seen in the area of equalities and inequality. So in moving forward, you know, one of the key competencies that has always been in the background but is now finding a voice of its own is about entrepreneurial mindsets and being more entrepreneurial and enterprising. And that's going to be an absolute key. We often associate enterprise and being entrepreneurial as simply about starting your own business. Well, actually it isn't. Universities, businesses, IT, the tech sector are all having to act, think and develop skills that make us entrepreneurial. So that's kind of one area. And the second area has been around interconnectivity, how leadership competencies are now requiring us to be able to work across institutional boundaries. So they're not just specific in, you know, a particular kind of area. And one of the things that I'm really proud about is, as part of York, we've got a centre that looks at leadership, but in a whole range of new ways. You know, we have leadership in terms of human rights, we have leadership in terms of the sciences and STEM and women's role as part of that. But let's not forget computing, engineering and technology. And so, you know, there are really important areas of work that we are researching now that make leadership current. So leadership of the future. So in answer to your question, we need to be more entrepreneurial. We think we need to kind of develop entrepreneurial mindsets. We need to ensure that leadership competencies of the future, and particularly in IT, address issues of equality and inequality in really informed ways. And then the final one is being able to work collaboratively and across institutional and cultural boundaries.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Over to Matthias now. Matthias, I'm going to try and combine two questions which have come in for you. One is a general one about where our strengths and possibly our weaknesses are in our research and how you're going to mobilise the former and deal with the latter, but also how we have mobilised our capabilities to make a contribution around COVID-19.
Excellent questions, both of those. There are real nuggets that we can find in sort of world-class research all across the university. And rather than enumerate all of those, I want to come to something that underlies how we do the research, which is really one of the great strengths of the university. And I'll give you one example within one area, sustainability. So it's not so much what we do, but also how we do it. It's green chemistry coming together with people who do analyses on water quality, who do work on biodiversity, who look at the social and the behavioral elements, law, business, all of those coming together and creating a coherent body of knowledge that then gets applied across a wide range of different settings. Our own campus as a living laboratory, as you heard before, our estate, how do we make this greener? How do we operate it with a much smaller carbon footprint? So we have people who work at those issues and bring it to bear on campus and learn from that. But also we do it in the city. We do it nationally, we do it internationally. We work within the Worldwide University Network, where we then partner with others all around the world to help drive knowledge and implementation of that knowledge on sustainability issues. And then we take that and bring it back to York and drive education and drive entrepreneurship and drive the new set of solutions that we need to find. So it's not just the what, but it's also the how that's really unique to York. And so if there is I wouldn't call it a weakness, it's probably a challenge to take that model of inclusive, transdisciplinary, use inspired research and make it penetrate through almost anything that we do. So we are working in areas of autonomous systems, again, law and computer science coming together with ethics and risk analysis. And we do this in the context of our local economy, and we do this in partnerships with people and industries all around the world. So again, it's not just the what, but the how. And that's a real big challenge to do this in a way consistently across all the different areas where we have strengths. And then to the second question with regard to COVID. So what have we learned and how would we sort of take the expertise that we have on campus and bring it to that? Again, it comes exactly down to the same points. Taking knowledge that we have in the medical sciences, taking knowledge in healthcare more broadly, in economics about healthcare, taking that all into the community, learning from that and bringing it back into the university and continuing to improve the knowledge base on which the decisions are made. So this is really what York is about from my perspective.
Terrific. Dean, a quick supplement from you on one of the research projects you've been involved in.
Yes, so in terms of responding to the pandemic, we've taken a trial we had running anyway, and we've very quickly repurposed it so it can be used to look at reducing depression and loneliness in older adults who are being asked to shield. So this is a particularly clinically vulnerable group. They're being asked to shield, and they're going to be asked to shield for some time, I imagine. And it's also a group that are most at risk of developing mental health problems because they're so restricted. We've within about 2 months, got this trial up and running. And if it works, we can roll it out at scale very quickly. And one sign of how important this trial is most research in the NHS has stopped at the moment. You can only do research if you get something called urgent public health status, where Chris Whitty needs to sign off on the research continuing. And there's only 2 mental health studies in the country with that status. And our trial, Basel, is one of those. So it's a really big fill-up for the university in demonstrating a response to the pandemic.
Brilliant, thanks. We're running out of time, but I wanted to come to Tracy again, because we've had a couple of questions about online education. One about which subjects might be more amenable to an online pedagogy than others, but also how we face the challenge of competing with others who may have been in this field for longer. Tracy.
Hi, thanks, Charlie. So I'm going to take the second point first. I think we're already making inroads into this. In the last 18 months, we've seen a move from 2% of our student population to just over 10% now studying online. And they're studying online from all over the world. And I think, going back to some of the earlier points, this has really opened up our access globally to students accessing our education. And we're seeing a change in demographics of those that are studying with us, which is really great to see. So we've got students from over 150 different countries now online. So I think we are making inroads in this. In terms of disciplines, if I'm honest, and this might be a little bit ambitious, I think all disciplines can lend themselves to online learning. We've got much to learn from what's gone on in the USA, where nursing, health, biology and chemistry can all be taught in that way. And I think we need to learn from those. And we've got links there as well to do that. So I'm really optimistic for the future that we will expand very much in this space. I think in terms of how we're doing it, we are looking at a distinctive pedagogy. We know teaching is very different. And for me, the biggest challenge in online teaching is not about the teaching itself. It's about those student communities and building those friendships, those relationships, and creating a real sense of belonging to the university and the city as a whole. And something that we're taking forward much more now as we seek to expand in this way. So I think we can do it in all areas if we really want to do it. And it's a great opportunity.
Brilliant, thanks. I know I'm stretching the time a little bit, but I wanted to come back to Anna for one more go. Firstly, to pass on the message of good luck to Anna going out into the world with your degree from our assembled alumni community, which is a lovely message to have. But there was a more specific message, and perhaps you can address it for us. Is there anything more the university can do to support and welcome international students like you?
Right. Well, I was thinking about it, and I think the university already does quite a lot. There's stuff online. I think the college systems are really great because you get plugged into something that you might not have necessarily been plugged into naturally as an international student. I think to do with anything more, I would say just supercharging all the efforts so that they actually reach international students. And one in particular, I would say, would be international groups or societies on campus. And I know sometimes they get a bad rep for, making people cliquey or making international students not, actually integrate. But I actually think they have lots of positive value because not only do they act as bringing a bit of your flavor of your country or your continent or your subsection of the world onto campus and make it feel more like home, but also they help because you meet people who are like you, but not only are like you, they're facing the same issues you face. So then it's always easier to go through any kind of friction or struggle or international issue if you have a friend going through it. And not only that, that friend probably knows what resource that the university is offering for that problem. So then they actually serve to bring you right back to the services that university offers. So I think promoting those groups and really making it so that they're supercharged and students actually know about them and come and join them would be a major thing for me.
Brilliant, thank you for that description of a University of York student community, which was great, and lovely to hear your dog in the background too. Let me just wind up and thank all of our panelists for their various contributions and say a word about the questions that have come in, because clearly you are focusing on the things that we care about, which shows we have a good alignment. We've had questions about how we teach our students most effectively, how we support access for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. We've had questions which capture the internationalism, which I think is so important to us, and questions about research that really makes a difference. I'm really pleased to see that alignment of where you are as our community of friends, alumni and supporters, and where we are. And I think that's a great base for us to continue to work together in that disrespect of limits in the future. So many, many thanks for joining us today, and bye-bye.